morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, depending on which part of the world you're joining this session from. My name is Farah Azmat, and I am joining you from Deakin Business School in Melbourne, Victoria. I'm working as a DPS, Deakin Business School Prime Director. And before I start, I just wanted to take a few moments to acknowledge the traditional owner of the land from where I am joining this session from. And for me, it is the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respect to the elders past, present, and emerging. So, welcome everyone to this very interesting session on practicing inclusion. I'm super excited to be the moderator of the session because inclusion is something which is very close to my heart, and my major research interest lies in the area of inclusion and sustainable development. And because I research in this field, I'm often asked this question, like, what do we mean by inclusion? And as you would know, inclusion has been defined in many different ways. But to me, one of the definition of inclusion that is really meaningful but yet very simple is the inclusion is defined to be the attitude or the process or maybe the mindset, that involves and values people regardless of their differences. So it's about embracing the fact that everyone has got value to add. And inclusion is like at the heart of sustainable development. And this is very much reinforced in the SDG agenda. So if we look at the SDG agenda, one of the key themes in SDG agenda is leaving no one behind. SDGs 5, 8, and 10, they all talk about inclusion, right? But unfortunately, inclusion is emerging as a systemic challenge for business schools, for companies, for organizations, for governments, and also for communities, right? And one of the reasons why we are facing this challenge is because we are living in a world where we are facing economic, social, and environmental challenges, and they all have implications for inclusion. For example, the COVID-19 pandemic, the environmental disasters we had, and also the war, the social conflict that we are experiencing, they all have implications for inclusion. They have rendered millions of people homeless. Millions of people are forced to be refugees. Many people have lost their employment. They have lost their ability to work. So how do we actually include these people in development? Because if we want to have sustainable development, we need to include all people from different walk of life in the development process. So in this session, we'll be exploring what role business school can play in promoting inclusion. And I'm super excited to be joined by three panelists from different parts of the world. So first, I have Dr. Harivansh Chaturvedi from India, from BIMTECH, India. And then I have Dr. Karen J. Williams from Deakin Business School in Melbourne. And last but not least, I have Muzna al-Rashid from Mohammed Rashid School of Government in UAE, right? So I will request each of the participants to just very briefly introduce themselves and just let us know, how can business schools, in your opinion, play a role in promoting inclusion? And if you can share one or two examples of how your business school or your specific institute is doing that, that would be great. So without wasting any further time, I will invite Dr. Harivansh Chaturvedi. So Harivansh, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Professor Farah Azmat. It's my privilege. My greetings to all participants and my fellow panelists. I am the director or dean of BIMTECH India for last 22 years. BIMTECH belongs to a premier business house from our country. They are called Birla, BIRLA. And after joining this B school, before that I was working for the government. I thought about the reality of Indian society, and one foremost tragedy and one biggest problem which I identified was the poor women participation in the economy as well as in society. Gender issues were very much stopping the progress of Indian economy. And as a B school, responsible B school, we thought that what can we do? First of all, we thought about having a residential campus because before my joining, there was not a residential campus. We were operating from a building uh, from capital of India, which is Delhi. So we have pursued the promoters and we have got their permission to set up a campus nearby Delhi. The place is called Greater Noida. It's an industrial hub. In 2004, we could set up a beautiful campus spread in 10 acres. And this has created a very positive uh, buzz about this campus because we were in position to provide a safe living and studying environment for girls. We could increase the participation of girls in our faculty and student community. In 2000, it was around 15%. Now it is 45% that we could increase. Secondly, we have thought about a unique project to intervene in the jail inmates in our country. We have identified because there was an area where we could have made some contribution without uh, much efforts. And in each district in India, there is a district jail. District jails are crowded. Males and females inmates are living there. They have no entertainment and educational facilities. We have decided to provide library to district jails in our province, which is called UP, which is the largest province having a population of more than 240 million and 70 districts. So we could so far set up jail libraries in 14 districts of India. It has got a lot of appreciation from the media and society. And as you know, that BIMTECH is one of the oldest member of PRME from India chapter. We have joined PRME in 2008, and we have started working with United Nations Global Compact, where I am on the board of UN Global Compact Network of India. So all these projects were supported by industry, by faculty and staff. Then we have also thought that we have been doing this work for the jail inmates. Now let us focus about the neighboring community of villagers. We selected 5 villages and we have started a project which was focusing on providing life skills for young school girls from poor families. We have named it on a bird, Indian bird called sparrow. And in 5 villages, we have started providing the training for life skills. We have taken these girls from villages to the Indian Parliament to meet the ministers, and we have taken them to meet district magistrates and police officers so that they can think about how to get things done in government offices. So these life skills, we have developed the curriculum in partnership with an NGO and with the collaboration of government agencies, government departments, the community leaders in villages, and also some NGOs. We could run this project for last 6-7 years, and still we are continuing it. Of course, during the 2 years of COVID, there was a disruption in all these activities. Now, recently, we have set up a school in Noida town under the metro rail line. Government has provided us the space. We have built a school. It is for the street children who are not getting enough attention in government schools. And mostly we are focusing on girls. So our priority is that how we can improve the education and literacy levels of Indian women, and business education can contribute a lot. We are providing so many scholarships and free ships for the women students in our institute. That's all we have done. And we could inculcate a sense of responsibility among our faculty and our students that what is the reality of India in the society when women having all the talents, they are not being given opportunity in spite of their best of the efforts. And BIMTECH is supporting them to compete and to increase their participation in the economy as well as in society. Thanks.
Yeah, Thank you so much, Harivansh. That was really insightful, just to know that not only BIMTECH is trying to include female women within the residential campus, but you're also, approaching the jails as well as schools, children, school-going girls in villages, right? So that's really, really good. And you're working in partnership with NGOs to develop curriculum. So I think we'll have more questions later on that. But I'll move on to the second participant, Dr. Karen Dunwoodie from Deakin Business School, and if we could please share the slide as well.
Thank you very much, Farah. Good evening, and for some of you, good morning and good afternoon. My name is Karen Dunwoodie, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Deakin University Centre for Refugee Employment Advocacy, Training and Education, otherwise known as Deakin Create. Our centre was launched in February 2019, and we sit within the Faculty of Business and Law at Deakin University. I know this is a very busy slide, but this really summarises what we do at Create very succinctly. And so what I'm going to do now is try and simplify this for you without having to squint and read through and look at all the numbers and diagrams, etc. So to start with, what was the problem that inspired us to take up the challenge to establish Create, the Centre for Refugee Employment Advocacy, Training and Education? Fundamentally, it was in response to the growing number of displaced people globally, now exceeding 100 million. In other words, more than 1% of the global population is now internally or externally displaced. Simply put, our research has shown that many of the refugee resettlement practices and policies are no longer working. Through our work and our research, we acknowledge the question of why we should care for refugees is a very simple question to answer, compared to the question of how should we care for refugees. And we acknowledge the answer to that challenge requires dramatic redesign. Keeping people alive or life-saving and the provision of humanitarian aid is no longer enough. We need to get much better at life-changing. Hence, my colleague, Professor Alex Newman and myself approached Deakin University to support us in building our centre, the first of its type in the world attached to a university. The university backed us and the centre was launched in February 2019. So who are we and what do we do? Our centre is an applied research centre that works for and with the refugee and asylum-seeking community to rebuild their careers through access to education, training and meaningful and decent employment. So how do we do this? We research, we produce guides, fact sheets for employers, job seekers, higher educational institutions and prospective students. We work with universities around the country to provide pathways for refugees and people seeking asylum to access education and training. We also recognise we cannot do this in isolation of the broader community. Hence, we collaborate with refugee community groups, higher educational institutions, philanthropic foundations, the corporate sector, not-for-profits, local government authorities, and the refugee support agencies to achieve our goals. An example of how we do this is our flagship program, Careers Clinic for Highly Qualified Refugees. This is an 8-week program run in collaboration with the philanthropic and corporate sectors across Australia, based on a mentee-mentor model. We, along with our industry-based volunteer mentors, work alongside people from the refugee community, the mentees, to share their knowledge and experiences of how to access meaningful and decent employment aligned with their qualifications. To date, we have worked with over 350 mentees, 170 mentors, and our last impact evaluation showed that 79% success rate in our mentees finding meaningful employment or access to education and training. Measuring impact is a priority for us. That's the third column there in the diagram. For example, as I noted, we document employment and access to educational and training outcomes for everyone coming through our clinics. We track how many people access our resources, guides and fact sheets on our website on a monthly basis, which we give away free to anybody who cares to access them. We keep abreast of external agencies who refer participants to us, and we constantly look for and hopefully develop better solutions for refugee resettlement, amongst other things, such as doing research and publishing, etc. So in summary, simply put, All refugees have the right to meaningful employment, education and training. And here at Create, this is not and never will be negotiable. So thank you very much, Farah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Karen, for providing that insight into the Create Research Center at Deakin Business School. And because I come from the same business school, I know that Create has won so many awards, nationally and internationally, just in recognition of the good work that you are doing to integrate refugee people from different disadvantaged backgrounds. So we will have a lot to ask you in the next few minutes. But before we do that, I will ask Muzna al-Rashid from Mohammed Rashid School of Government in UAE to have her just share with us some of the examples, that your business school is implementing to promote inclusion. So, Muzna, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Farah. Hello, everyone. My name is Muzna Rashid. I'm a master's student at Mohammed bin Rashid School of Government, studying innovation management, and I'm currently working as an engineer in infrastructure technology at Dubai airports. MBRSG is one of the leading public policy government institutes in the Arab world. As well, it's one of the few institutes that offers innovation management and postgraduate program. MBRSG is part of the Prime Network since 2018, and their teaching methods involves project-based learning, which includes theory, continuous assessment, and towards the end of the semester, we present our projects to stakeholders. As His Highness the Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum says, the bigger our dreams, the bigger our accomplishment. And that's the reason why I studied Master of Innovation Management, because their mission is innovation for future public value. And public value means mission accomplishment of public interest or common goods. So this is the reason I studied MIM. There's a course in our program that focuses on wicked problems and SDGs specifically. That's why I was chosen by my university to showcase my project on dyslexia and to present to you how we systematically embed SDGs in our curricula. This is an example about inclusiveness of people of determination. Dyslexia, a wicked problem means something that is hard to define, and they are complex because there are multiple conditions associated with multiple social environments, as well as it involves unpredictable outcomes. The wicked problem that I'm trying to solve is the lack of suitable environment for dyslexic people in education, and that contributes to SDG 4, which is quality education. So dyslexia means people who have hard time decoding or spelling, as well as it's a neurodevelopment disorder that starts at an early age, as well as it's a lifelong condition that's inherited. So dyslexia can feel excluded if they do not receive the proper support. So they require the proper support from schools and colleges to become proficient leaders and readers and writers. So the recommendation would be to implement a policy to empower them by doing early screening, which requires clinical assessment, as well as a reading program, which requires teachers and professionals who have literacy skills. To support that, Ohio had a law enacted in 2011 called OHHB 96, and they measured it for two main factors. The first factor is early screening reading program and evaluation of cost effective of the program. It took a full year to implement this policy. Afterwards, they decided to fulfill it by implementing it on a pilot program, which means experimental try to save people who are at risk of dyslexia. Fast forward 4 years, the results were outstanding. The students at the early grades show positive outcome. The results of the screening have reduced the failing of students in reading. As well, it increased the capacity of schools to screen and reading difficulties. At that year, 4 schools have participated, and those schools have saved nearly $11,000 to $134. The solution, as you can see, can empower dyslexics and give them the chance to become better readers and writers. At the end of my project, I was able to present my project to someone who was from competitive activities researcher and policy department in Dubai, who was as well responsible of the SDG goals. So this brings me to the end of my slide. To you, Farah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Muzna. And just wanted to say that what a wonderful piece of research you are doing, and you need to be congratulated on that.
Thank you.
Just another comment that, you're not only contributing to SDG 4, but in my opinion, you're also contributing to SDG 10, which is reducing inequality, right?
Sure.
Because people with disability, they face so many disadvantages. I mean, they're so disadvantaged everywhere in the world. Right. My second question would be to perhaps to go back to Harivansh, and just ask, you talked about a number of initiatives, Harivansh, you talked about establishing a residential campus. You talked about, establishing a library for jail inmates in different districts of India. You talked about working with school children in villages. And how easy was it difficult for you? Because it's a huge program, I could see, it involves a lot of stakeholders. I mean, how difficult was it? Was it easy for you? That's my question.
I can give my example that in my young life, I was deeply involved in these type of activities when I was a student of my university. So I developed my commitment there. When I was a teacher, I continued with it. But when I became the director, I used my experience and my commitment to motivate my faculty colleagues, my students to involve themselves in this project. Our management, because they have been doing so many philanthropic activities in India, they are the big business house. So they have also encouraged us. There was no constraints of financial resources. We are supported by the political leaders, local MP, local member of parliament who was the minister, and even the district administration, because jails were crowded in UP, the province we are located, and there was no library available, and the females were having children along with them. So we have provided them books for the children, for the ladies, and also toys for them. And I think it is a question of commitment. In our vision, we have included inclusion. Sustainability and inclusion are two big components of our vision. So we have created this kind of passion among our students and faculty, and we have got overwhelming support. Of course, we have to do a lot of lecturing, a lot of persuasion to the government agencies and department that we are doing right thing, and it is a work which government should appreciate. So there were challenges, and many times students were not willing to go to slums and villages. But when they have seen that the director himself is going, faculty members are going, so they have also started going to these places.
Yeah, thank you, Harivansh. So it just reinforces the fact that you need to engage everyone, right? Everyone in this process. You need to have the support from the top leadership. You need to work with multiple stakeholders. So and we need to walk the talk, because if as a director you're doing, the students must do it, right? That's another thing. So Karen, your center has done so well, receiving so many awards nationally and internationally. How easy was for you guys to establish that center and the wonderful work that you are doing? Did you face any challenges, and how did you deal with that?
Yes, I think well, to begin with, having Deakin University open its arms and welcome us, and the Vice Chancellor at the time was very passionate about the refugee situation here in Australia. So she thought it was an amazing idea. It was initially very, very difficult because we had no templates to work off. No one had done this, what we were doing, had done it before. And we're working in a space that's that has very, very limited resources. I mean, financial resources, expertise. We were seeing what was happening globally and how that was panning out in countries like Germany and in Canada, gaining access to education and employment was something that both Alex and I had identified huge gaps. So it really was starting from scratch. I think the hardest thing was not having the staff, really. And so we piloted our program, the two of us. We knew that our research was indicating that there were major gaps in the refugee space, and that we really, really needed to look at practical implications of this and what impact our research would have if we involved the refugee community at every level. And what I mean by that is being able to get funding is probably the hardest thing for us. Although the university funds myself and Alex, everybody else that works in at our centre is funded externally. So any money that we bring in through philanthropy, through projects, through arrangements with the corporate sector. So we're now partnering with the corporate sector to run careers clinics. And so I think that's probably the toughest thing, is to keep going, Farah, in order to ensure that we can continue our research, but being very, very focused on that applied research. So I think it was starting from scratch, not having the staff. However, that was mitigated by the support that the university gave us in accessing all the support that we needed within the institution, and particularly within the faculty.
Yeah. Karen, I had a question. In your presentation, you talked about the career clinics, right?
Yes.
And it's one of the most successful aspects of the Create Center. Would you just tell us, what happens in a career clinic, and how do you get these mentors and mentees?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so the mentees come, we have about 30 referral points from across Australia. So that's the refugee support agencies. And both Alex and I have been working in the refugee sector for quite some time as volunteers, but also researching with and alongside the refugee communities. So it is often self-referral. So they might refer family, particularly with, for example, with the high number of Afghans coming into Australia at the moment. We've built a very trusted network. So we get a lot of referrals from, and many highly qualified Afghans are coming into Australia. So they come through our clinics. So it really is through word of mouth. Sometimes we go on to, social media sites, but that's more the refugees themselves and the people seeking asylum that do it, because they've had wonderful outcomes in terms of finding meaningful employment. When it comes to the mentors, our mentors come from all walks of life. We've had everything from CEOs of major multinational corporates to ex-foreign ministers of Australia, politicians. We've had academics. We have alumni, which is the beauty of situating this particular centre within a university. So, for example, when we posted on LinkedIn under our centre for mentors to our alumni community, within 48 hours, we had 200 people sign up to come into the program. So the alumni team said it was the fastest response they'd ever had to a call out for anything at the university. So it really is a space where many people want to come in. And as I said, now we're partnering with corporates. So, for example, we've got a very large retail organisation that is wanting to run 3 career clinics where they bring in their own staff as mentors, and that upskills their staff in diversity and inclusion and equity, and they work alongside the people from refugee backgrounds to re-establish their careers in Australia. So it's from various collaborations that we have across the sector and into the corporate, into government, etc. So that's taken time to build up. As I said, we've only been going for just over 3 years, and that's really the reputation. And as I said, impact is incredibly important, and measuring that impact and publicising that impact as well is very important, not only for the refugee community, but for our partners as well.
Yeah, excellent. That's really great. Thanks, Karen. Muzna, would you like to share with us, have you faced any challenges, when you were doing that study in terms of including people with dyslexia, any?
Yes, implementing such policy comes with challenges, of course, especially the UAE always thinks ahead. Implementing those policies cannot be just from colleges, but it requires a higher power. For example, in our case, that will be the federal regulators, which is Ministry of Education, because they are responsible for the curriculum around the country, as well as the learning standards. But we require collaboration as well with Ministry of Health, because we require clinical assessment assessment, and that will happen from their end. So the challenges that comes with this is that the UAE is unique because we have 200 nationalities. So each language in dyslexia is different than another. So if we have 200 nationalities, it will be hard to do screening and assessment. And another challenge could be that the students enrolled in a year is more than clinical staffs and teachers put together. So we require more assessment and screening. So these are two main challenges that could happen if we implement this law.
Yeah, thank you so much, Muzna. But at the same time, I will ask audiences, if you have any questions to any of the panelists, please feel free to put that in the chat, and we will try to come back to you. Going back to Harivansh again, Harivansh, you have been working in this space for quite some time now. You talked about, being there for more than 6 years. Is it right?
22 years.
Wow, 22 years. I don't know what I was listening to. Yeah,
I am a
22
senior,
years. Yeah, my God.
I am a senior citizen, and I have devoted last 22 years to BIMTECH as a director.
Excellent. That's really good. So you have that wealth of experience, Harivansh. What are some of the lessons learned, from including women? You're working on inclusion of women, What are some of the lessons learned in the context of India that you would like to share with us, please?
I can just quote from Bloomberg and World Bank data that if India could achieve 50% participation of women in its economy, right now it is around 15% in the economy, in the corporate sector. And if it can be increased to 50%, then within next 30 years, it can generate extra additional GDP worth US dollars 6 trillion. So it is a case that if India has to sustain its economic growth in coming decades, it has no other major thing which is to be resolved by it. That is the gender empowerment, gender equality, and removing all barriers in the progress of women's participation in the economy. So I would like to say that since our students will be the business leaders, they have to see this social reality. Our institute is a small microcosm of the huge population of India, which is 1.4 billion, and we are just producing business leaders. So I'm hopeful that by working on these projects, they will develop the sensibility, and they will appreciate that without equal participation of women in the economy and society and in politics, India cannot maintain sustainable growth and a good future.
Yeah. So, am I right in saying that, Harivansh, that one of the lessons that you have learned is that just to create the awareness that, we need to have women participation. At the moment, it's very low, lying at 15%. So if we want to have sustainable development, we need to increase that participation to roughly 50%. And for that, we need to take different initiatives, right? Is this something that you would like to say? Would you say that I'm correct in assuming that?
Pardon?
Would you
Hello?
agree? Would you agree with me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So would
I
you
can
agree
hear
with
you.
me that So what I want to say that is this the lesson that you want to create, that awareness that women need to be in the forefront? At the moment their participation is only 15% in the economy. But if we want to
Yes.
achieve that higher level of growth, we need to engage them. At least we need to have 50% of the female
Yes,
participation. Right? So
it cannot be achieved by the economy or the society within 1 or 2 years. It will take 2 more decades, because India has been a patriarchal society and there has been a lot of cultural and religious
yeah,
barriers.
yeah,
It has been prevailing in other countries also. So I
yeah,
would like to say that we are a B school, standalone B school. We are not a university, but we are setting an example in the society,
yeah,
and we are creating future leaders. They can create impact. That
yeah.
our
Okay.
boys, they should always, while deciding a business plan, they should think about how it will affect the gender empowerment or gender equality. Like
Yeah,
there are majority of Indian women are homemakers. So how to make their life comfortable, how to resolve their basic problems like fuel. The
Yeah.
government has developed cooking LPG gas and other kinds of gas instead of firewood. The city women are shifting towards cooking food on gas or stove, whereas the women from rural areas, they are still facing the problem, lot of uh, pollution to their which is harmful for their health. So I think when they will become the leader, they will work in marketing, HROB operations, different facets of management. They will always keeping in mind how it is going to affect the life conditions of Indian women. And
Yeah.
The founder of the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, has been saying that if you want to improve the society, teach one girl. If you
Okay.
teach one girl, she can change the whole family after
Yeah.
becoming a mother or after becoming a grandmother.
Yeah.
So we have to be a change agent, and there has been a lot of chauvinism, male chauvinism among the boys. There has been a lot of crimes against women, and we have been taking. I have been taking my students to some of the social movements against all kinds of crimes and violence against women, because
Yeah.
Indian society has taken a very strong stand in 2012 when one girl was gang raped in Delhi.
Yeah, we know that.
A bus, and then society has come out on roads. Ultimately,
Yeah.
government has taken tough action. Some committee was appointed. A Supreme Court judge has given a very good report. So
Yeah.
we are
Oh,
involving
yeah,
our
definitely.
students in all kinds of social movement, not political, but
Yeah.
I want to teach them that you have to understand this foremost reality of Indian society. If you have to manage companies, if you have to manage governments, you should know that
Yeah.
male chauvinism has to be removed. There should be gender equality.
Yeah.
There should be women's
So
empowerment.
it actually goes back to creating that inclusive mindset of students, right? So that they can value.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Harivansh. Karen, how would you like that? Like to answer that question? What are the lessons learned? If you could share with us, if you.
Okay, I think it fundamentally starts with us in at Deakin Create that equity and inclusion is a basic human right. So access to education for all and access to meaningful, decent employment for all is a basic, fundamental human right. That's the basis of everything that we do within our centre. So we feel that organisations, including universities, need to be held accountable and responsible to the broader community and what is going on. So we need to work in collaboration with the broader community, not just sit in our desks and we like to describe people maybe, what we used to do as desktop warriors. So we sit here and we do the research and we publish the research in the hope that somebody's going to take that on. So the lessons learned in our centre is that we do not take on any research project unless it includes the refugee community. So we employ people from the refugee community in our centre. We consult with them. We work alongside them. We reciprocate when it comes to our research projects. We do not do any research unless we have consulted with the refugee community. So diversity and inclusion must be embedded in the heart of any institution or any centre such as ourselves. So it is something that we live and breathe every single day. And in order to do that, I think that institutions need to challenge the status quo. We need to think about what we're doing because we tend to be very, very inwardly looking in academic institutions. And in fact, we probably spend 80% of our time outside the institution in the work that we do. And that's working in collaboration with all those organisations I mentioned before in order to make change. So at the moment in the world, only 3% of the world's refugee population have access to higher education versus 37% of the general population. So refugees are not getting access to higher education when they have a human right to do that. So why is that happening? What are institutions doing? What do they need to do to go forward? So the lessons learned is to really open our doors. Our centre takes in any student from any university to work with us, to work alongside us. We also consult to other universities. We produce guides for higher institutions on how to access, how to support students from refugee backgrounds when they get in there. We produce guides for students wanting to access tertiary education. We also keep track of all the scholarships that are available in Australia. So you can go to our website and we do all that work. We do all the hard work, and we include and we open our doors to other institutions. So we are not closed off, nor do we close our doors to any of the corporate sector or the not-for-profits or the philanthropic foundations, or we couldn't survive without them. So we must take a collaborative approach to this solution, because the system in many instances is broken, and it's not going to change until we come together, we work together, and we come up with much better solutions to support the refugees community around the world. The numbers are not going to go down.
Yeah.
So,
Excellent.
I mean, yeah. So that's
Thanks, Karen.
basically,
Excellent. I'm mindful of the time. We're constrained by time, but you are spot on. We need partnerships. We need it, because inclusion is a wicked problem. You cannot work on your own and solve the problem. You need to work with different stakeholders. That's what we need to do. Muzna, do you have any 1 minute comment to add to the question?
And to the question, I will add that there are core issues for dyslexia. For example, there is a lack of awareness that many people do not know what dyslexia. Even some parents do not know, and that can be challenging, because if we're required to do clinical assessment, we need family history. And another core issue is that the lack of teachers teacher learning. Many teachers do not know. According to a study in Portugal, 75% of the teachers are not aware about dyslexia and do not know how to deal with the students with dyslexia. So that's like how I would link it to it. But because of time, we cannot talk more about it. But thank you. Back to you.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Muzna. And creating awareness is such a huge issue. We really need to create awareness about these sort of, disabilities that we have in our workforce. So if I just want to very quickly sum up, the session, I'm not sure how many minutes I have, but I just want to say that the importance of collaboration and partnership has stood out. The second key message for me is we universities can play a role and are playing a role in promoting inclusion, not only through curriculum, but also through research. And that's what your center is doing, Karen. And I also want to say that business schools are facing inclusion from different perspectives. Within the business school, they are dealing with an increasingly diverse workforce, where people are coming from different background, race, ethnicity, religion. And how do they promote inclusive culture? That's a big challenge for business schools. On the other front, they're also dealing with a very increasingly diverse cohort of students, with different expectations, different physical ability, and how can business schools deliver that curriculum, which is inclusive? Outside the business school, they're facing a world which is very, very, very divided between disadvantaged and those who are advantaged. So we really need to work together in partnerships. So the clock is ticking. We only have 8 more years for the Sustainable Development Goals to go, and we need to work in partnerships. And together, we can be hopeful that we can solve the wicked problem of inclusion, at least to some extent, right? But thank you so much to all the panelists. Thank you very much, Harivansh. Thank you very much, Karen, and thank you very much, Muzna, and also to the audience who have been listening to us. Thank you so much. Thank you. But if you have any questions, if you want to comment on anything, we still have 1 minute. Anyone would like to say anything?
I would just like to say that women empowerment is very important issues in Asian countries, and particularly in Southeast Asia, where there has been historical biases against women's participation. There is a system of parda, PURDAH, which requires that they should live inside homes and they should not come into the public life. So I think this school can help society by telling them that what are the economic benefits of allowing women to participate in the society and economic life.
I just wanted to respond very quickly to that, Harivansh. I don't know whether we would have time, but you talked about the issue of barda, that you have to cover yourself. But even remaining within the barda, whatever you call it, you still can contribute. you still can contribute. That's the main message. We see so many refugees out there. They are, they're wearing the veils, but they're still contributing to the economy. So this is a matter of creating that awareness, the cultural awareness that, so we have a lot of work to do in this space, but collectively we can do that. That's what I hope. So take care, everyone. Stay safe and be inclusive.
Thank you so much.